did as he intended. Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally.
I would concede, but I don't, because I believe that it was not premeditated. She said that because the person was not flowing along with her. I don't think it was in particular because of the expression Jesus is Lord. The person could have said any other thing and she would have said the same thing. I think you're at the wrong rally just because they're hecklers. I would like to criticize her, but at this point, no, I'm not.
I respect you, so I respect your views, but I'm telling you that's not what her intent was.
The Black and Brown Podcast.
I'm still tripping with that intro that Paco created for us. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Black and Brown Podcast. Of course, we have Miranda. We got Newton.
Hello.
How are you guys doing?
Wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Good. Well,
I'm doing well.
Good. I'm excited as
ahead,
always.
Jonathan.
I say that all the time. I'm excited about our episode for tonight. As we all agreed, we're going to talk about church and politics. And I was telling Paco at before we start recording that this is he called it my coming out podcast, or it's my time to share this video with my friends, with my family. You know, I think it's time to come out and tell people what I really think, what's going on, and what's in my heart, what's in my mind about what's going on in the world when it comes to politics and when it comes to church involvement and all that stuff. So without further ado, let's, Paco, bring out the first video that I sent you.
Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade, and they did as he intended. Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally.
Wow.
That's one video that has come out. I'm going to start, ladies first. Miranda, you saw this video. What's your reaction to it?
All I've got to say is that tells us who she really is. I mean, I've known who she is, but for someone to yell out Jesus is Lord in the crowd and for her to say you're at the wrong podcast, not the podcast, you're at the wrong rally, that says more about her than it does about the person who was standing up for God. And then what's weird is the very next day, or maybe the same day, she went to a church. If that's not like blasphemous, I don't know what is. I mean, she's pretending to be something that she's not. Just not buying it.
Newton?
I've heard a lot of criticism of what she said, but as much as I would like to agree with all the criticisms, I don't. Because hecklers came to her rally saying what is not relevant to what she's saying. Now, I really don't understand how Jesus is Lord is relevant to what she was saying. So it was natural for her to say, you're at the wrong rally. That's what I saw. I did not see her being against Jesus Christ or anti-Jesus, because she was so quick in responding. So
excuse me, Newton, they're talking about abortion. That's why he said Jesus is Lord. The talk was about the abortion. Like, honestly, what do the people think? Like, the people that are watching, put in a comment. Like, what do you think about someone saying that? If you're a Christian, you're at a rally, it doesn't matter that you're there. You're not there to like spouse your beliefs on anybody. But when you're talking and when you're going through this, all of your life aspects is supposed to have some component of God being first in it. And they're talking about abortion, and that was that person's response to them talking about abortion.
Let me give you some context, okay, Newton. I like that. Yeah. You know, you're trying to be as logical as possible. Just to put in context what she started with this particular video, when she said that, she was talking about Trump instilling handpicked 3 he instilled three Supreme Court justices, conservative Supreme Court justices. That was because of what he did, what Trump did during his presidency. He instilled three conservative judges that actually overturned Roe versus Wade. And then someone uttered those words, and then to me though it was such an insult. Like, you're in the wrong rally. What are you talking about? Because when I heard that, it does speak so much where she stands and what the whole Democratic Party stands on. That's the context when someone screamed that, whether it's a heckler or what or not. But the way she responded to the heckler, right? Like, you're in the wrong rally. I mean, not acknowledging that what they were saying is actually true. That's the context.
Okay, I would concede, but I don't agree. I would concede, but I don't, because I believe that it was not premeditated. She said that because the person was not flowing along with her. I don't think it was in particular because of the expression Jesus is Lord. The person could have said any other thing and she would have said the same thing. I think you're at the wrong rally, just because they're hecklers. That's what I thought. I really didn't think it was in particular because this expression was Jesus is Lord. That's what I think. So I would like to criticize her, but at this point, no, I'm not.
Oh, okay. Hey, fair enough. Go ahead, Miranda. Last point before we go to the next video.
Newton, I respect you, so I respect your views, but I'm telling you that's not what her intent was. She's shown a pattern of behavior, and that pattern of behavior lines up with what she did to that person.
I agree, but I don't agree that in this case, that's what it is. But I'm going to let it go.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
Good. It's good that we have a little bit of disagreement and something to talk about moving forward. But for the next videos that I'm going to be showing to you guys, or Paco will be playing for us. By the way, for those who are watching, please like and subscribe and make comments on the things that we're going to be talking about. We would love to hear from you guys. So, anyways, let's go with the videos we're going to be talking about. And there are a bunch of guys that I listen to a lot, and some videos I'm going to be featuring are videos from Frank Turek, and we got a brave pastor that Miranda shared with me. His name is Pastor Alton Williams, and one of my favorite pastors of all time, Gary Hamrick of Cornerstone in Leesburg, Virginia. The things that I'm going to be talking about is why do we as Christians need to be involved in politics? So there's a question that I would love to answer, and this is the first question right here. Paco, roll the video.
Now, why do you think so many pastors are silent? Why are they silent now on some of the biggest issues of the day?
Would you like to answer the question first, Miranda, please?
I think they're afraid of numbers. It's like a numbers game. I think they're afraid of losing members. Because it seems like if they're not giving a response or a consensus that everybody agrees with, it's like they would rather stay silent and let people think how they want to think without them acknowledging. But to me, silence is complicit. So if you don't, the Bible tells them that they're supposed to lead their sheep. So every aspect, you're supposed to have something that you instruct your members to follow, because the Bible is called the Bible for a reason. Basic living instructions before leaving earth. It tells you how to conduct yourself. And as a pastor, if you're supposed to be leading people and you're not even voicing that, it makes me wonder like where you stand as a person. I shouldn't have to wonder that if you're supposed to be leading me.
All right, I agree with you. Newton, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to say this. When we started, you said we're going to talk about church and politics. Somehow, that's not what I saw. I saw church and culture. Because you see, the American politics is no longer about policy. It is mostly about culture. What the people must believe, what they must do, the rituals they must perform, the things they must say are good, and the things they must condemn. That's what our politics is all about now. It's not no longer mostly about the policies, like you say, the foreign policy, the monetary policy. It's mostly about the culture, what we worship, what we believe, what we do. So at this point, the preachers have a congregation that they cannot tell what to believe. That's the problem, because the culture has taken over the minds of people, and the preachers know that if they have to stand with the scripture, they will go against the culture that many of the members bring into church and are happy with. You see, the thing is, as Christians, like a lot of people have said, we have become this charity organization that what makes us believers is being nice to our neighbors and don't condemn them, don't say anything. So because politics is no longer politics, it's essentially culture, that's what we do now. All we just do is try to bring people together, whatever makes, like you said, it's a game of numbers, whatever brings the most people together so they can hear about salvation. So what about those who have heard about salvation, those who are already saved? We're not teaching them anymore. And so it's a game of numbers, but there's a confusion at this point between politics and culture, because we no longer have a culture in America. It is now politics. It's difficult to separate them. And nobody wants to sound political as a preacher. But the politics is the culture at this point. Because whatever you believe is what determines how you vote.
Well, that creates the question of what you're talking about, because you try to clarify what you just said, because culture versus politics. Culture, that's not legislated, right? Culture is not legislated. It's just a norm that everybody does. If you don't do it, you don't go to jail. That's culture. If you do it, you're being applauded by people. But when it comes to politics, every law is morally based. The question is, whose morality? I said it all the time. But here's the thing, when it comes to politics, if you do something, great, you are free. But if you don't follow what the politicians' laws, if I'm not mistaken, laws, politics, they're a little bit potato, the same thing. If you don't follow certain things, you go to jail, you get fined. So can you clarify when you say people don't understand the difference between culture and politics?
Good example. It was not the culture for a man to marry a man. That's culture. That was not politics. Do you think it's culture now? Is it culture now? It's not. It's now politics. It is no longer culture. So what I'm saying, in the American environment, many things that are left to culture, the things you can believe, is now being legislated. Okay? You can believe many things which are not true, but it is now a law that you have to believe it. Or there are things you used to believe you can no longer believe, otherwise you're called the enemy of the state, or a conspiracy theorist, or anti-whatever, or whatever. For example, if you believe that the head of the home is the man, there's something wrong with you.
Well, I guess something's wrong with me, because I'll always believe that the man is the head of the household.
So that's the problem. It's because our politics is now so much mingled with culture that every law now is now based on what people believe. It is just a question of beliefs. And that's basically what culture is. It is what you believe, the things you practice. People practice things that should not be. Men dressed up as women and playing in front of children. That's a cultural thing. The culture is supposed to condemn that. But now there are laws that protect those things. You can no longer say your culture is stronger than the politics. That's the problem we're having.
Well, let's go back to the question, why is the church, why are pastors, why is the church? Again, I'm going to use the word pastors, right? Because the pastors represent mostly the church, when they're talking about the corporate church, right? Why do you think they're silent about this?
Because they're afraid. I said it. They're afraid of losing the people. It's a game of numbers because you have not taught them what they should believe. You've not taught them what their culture should be. You've not taught them what they should accept or reject because you're now afraid of the politics. Because the politicians are going to come investigate what your church has been doing with the money. And many pastors are guilty of mismanaging money and they're getting tax credits. They have secrets that the FBI knows, that they know only the government knows, their church members don't know, or the church committee doesn't know. Or somebody could come in and say, this pastor did this, we have this information, we can track his Google, whatever. So a lot of people don't want to speak up because if they come after you, they're going to expose you. And that's the biggest problem with the whole pastors not speaking, whatever. Everybody is afraid. If you find a very bold person who thinks they are clean, they would speak because there are many people speaking, but most people are not.
I want
Miranda,
to
you're
know.
gonna say something. Go ahead.
Know what the people watching this think. I honestly, because this is a hot subject. I mean, I know people who have sat in the same church for 20, 30 years, but their pastor's so weak. He's a people pleaser instead of pleasing God, directing his sheep like he's supposed to. And there's too many pastors that are just like that. Again, Newton, you're right. It goes back to the numbers game. Nobody wants to offend anybody because it's all about money or who knows who or who can get something from this person or that person. Priorities have shifted so much. It's about pleasing people rather than pleasing God and showing people how to get to heaven. Like we're all like, if we're listening to some of these pastors, and I've been a Christian for as long as I can possibly remember, but there's so many pastors that are leading their flock straight to hell. And that's me just saying it like it. Them being silent and saying nothing says everything. It says that culture's the one that's guiding their flock and not them.
Well, let me ask you this question. I think I'm going to go try to be the devil's advocate. How about the narrative or the notion that there is a separation of church and state, that politics should be taken out of the church because there's supposed to be a separation? What do you guys think about that? That's, for the most part, for those people who, like, okay, there are, because right now for the first part, the argument is that the pastors or the leaders are afraid to lose numbers. But there are people out there are saying, no, we're not afraid. It's just that there is a separation of church and state. What do you guys think about that? I'm going to start with Maranda on this.
I don't believe that there's a separation of church and state. The Bible tells us what to do on certain things, and a lot of it has to do with how we live our life, even with policies, with procedures under government. It explicitly tells us how to live. I don't believe there's a separation. I think that's a myth and an easy way to try to get people to kowtow to not saying something when they don't want them to. That's just my personal opinion. I'm dying to see what people say. I cannot wait to read the comments on this one.
Go ahead, Newton.
I want to take Nigeria as an example. There are usually two major parties, okay? Even if there are many, they merge together, and two major parties will be the leading parties for every election that I've experienced since I became aware of it. Nobody talks about who you should vote for or how you should vote at church. That's normal because the politicians are not trying to change the culture. They're not trying to change what you believe. They're not trying to tell you you cannot, a man should marry a woman, a child that was born a boy can become a girl. None of those parties are saying things like that. So it's almost the same. My mom would say they're the same 10 and 10 pence. Okay, it's the same thing. They just have different names. They're going to do the same things, like when we say the deep state here in America. But at this point, you have two different cultures. Two parties pushing two different things. One very progressive, saying we cannot keep what has always been. We have to change it. You can't say the man is the head of the family. You can't say 2 + 2 is always 4. You cannot say that a man must marry a woman. You see, they're changing so many things. That's where we cannot separate. We cannot say there's a separation of church and state because the state has determined the culture. And the culture includes religion. So there is no excuse at this point for anybody saying preachers should not talk about politics. That's a lie. because politics is now the culture of the American system.
I'm going to end with this particular issue. I'm going to end it with this. You could try to find the word separation of church and state. There's freedom of religion, but there's no such thing as a separation of church and state in the Constitution. It started with a letter by Thomas Jefferson to the Danbury Baptist Church, guaranteeing them there will be freedom of religion. And then people translated that as if there's a wall between church and state. The purpose of the letter is to basically say that the church is going to be protected from what the state does, not the other way around. That's why many things, like as I've been saying this for a while now. The LGBTQ community, the abortion, they made it into a political issue rather than moral issue. It's a morality issue, okay? And the government is here to legislate morality. The question is, whose morality we're going to base it at? We're going to roll the next video by Frank Turek. Here we go, Paco.
Uproar in the congregation, money, you're saying. And pastors have a hard job, but the issues of the day, people say, well, you can't get political, right? You can't get political. First of all, I don't know why people say that. Why not? Is it important how you're governed? Of course it is, right? Does our ability to preach and live the gospel, is that affected by politics? Of course it is. Should we be against people that are, well, if we go back 160 years ago, should we have preached against slavery? Should we have preached against abortion? Should we seek justice where injustice is done? Of course we should. But some people don't want to do that. In fact, you know what keeps moving? The line as to what is political and what isn't. I mean, 20 years ago, would marriage be a political issue? No. 60 years ago, was abortion a political issue? No. You know what's actually a political issue now? What your gender is. That there are men and women. That's a political issue now. You know what else is about to become a political issue? It's already a political issue in Canada. The Bible.
See, the end of that, the line of political and the moral issues keeps moving. It's arbitrary. That's the problem. We're going to go through this because I'm excited about the next one. But what's your reaction to that, Maranda?
I agree wholeheartedly with everything he said. And it should not be an issue. I mean, he's right.
Think about it. It's from the morality,
the goal line's always moving. How is it always moving? It shouldn't always be moving.
Yes, absolutely. Newton.
Yeah, and I agree. The movement, however, is more like a tug of war in which one side is consistently winning. See, they keep encroaching upon the areas of God's morality. They first came and said, no, what you said is not right. The only time that I think that God's way has won is slavery. It cost a lot of blood, but that's the only time. Every other time, it doesn't look like God's way is just dominating. It's just the way of the world. It's just the way of the world. One thing to another to another. Look, like before, marriage was never a controversy, right? Now it is controversial. You can't even talk about, I said, in schools you can no longer do all the Mother's Day and Father's Day, all that stuff you can't do because I was teaching sets recently and I said a probability exclusive, a mutually exclusive probabilities. And I said, you cannot be both a man and a woman. And there was silence.
Oh gosh. Wow.
Even I, at some point, my heart skipped. Boom, have I said the wrong thing? Even though I am as bold as a lion, but I was afraid that, hey, what's going to happen? Because I said you cannot be both a male and a female. Because I was teaching mathematics. Yeah, but you say it's true, but that's not what the law says now.
Uh, wow.
And that's why
I-
the kids are so confused. Like, do they not realize they're hurting the kids by all of this? It's so confusing now. Like, I cannot imagine as a child
Oh, really?
you knowing what.
Okay, we're having some technical issues with Miranda right now with her internet.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
let me pick it up from there.
Please go ahead.
Miranda, can you still hear us? Okay.
We lost her for a
that's
second.
the
She's probably
thing.
going to come back and reconnect.
Yeah. We have this opinion that they're confused. The politicians and the state does not think so.
No.
So that you get it. That's what scares the preachers. That is what troubles the preachers, because the state is on their neck. I do understand the whole. I think money is a major player in this thing, because if preachers have no benefits from the government, I think a lot more would speak up. A lot more would speak up. A lot more would speak up.
Well, this election to me is very, very crucial. So here, let's jump on to the next video. What the real problem are, pretty much. Oh, thank you. We got Maranda back. We lost you for a second.
Sorry.
Yeah.
What I think the real problem is, I think the real problem is that in America, we've bought into the idea that the church is for unbelievers. According to the Bible, the church is for believers. The purpose of the church is to equip the saints to do ministry, which is what Ephesians 4 says. But if you're speaking to a mixed congregation, you're going to preach in many cases to the lowest common denominator. And if you don't want to lose anybody in your congregation, then you might not preach on the hard issues. You might steer away from what people really need to hear, because you're trying to keep a group. You're not trying to disciple people.
He said the lowest common denominator. That what really hit me in listening to a lot of churches. And then, one of my hobby is actually YouTube. I go to YouTube, and I know Miranda would always send us videos on YouTube. All of us, many of us who would go to YouTube to get their sources. Even, there are times that I can't, that's time I have to admit, there are times that I am lazy with reading my Bible. Like, God, I can't read it, but maybe I can listen to someone to get inspired. And then, of course, when I would hear someone, I would check on them. And I like what he said about the common denominator. You would not hear anything that's going to be offensive. Remember, when one time I heard a pastor, John MacArthur said, the Bible is offensive. It's offensive because by nature we are sinful. So it is offensive to us. Miranda, since we lost you for a second, I'm going to start you we're going to have you start with this, with your reaction on this video.
Wow, he is spot on. And I understand the preaching to the lost, but I believe there's a time and place. People need to know and truly understand the Bible. And you are correct. It's not meant to coddle you. It's meant to tell you things to save you. And some people just aren't strong-willed enough to be able to be that true voice, that voice of reason that's needed, because we're all sinful. Like, we all fall short. But if you can't really be the person and the leader that you're supposed to be as a voice for God, it's kind of hard for me to follow you or want to follow you. I agree with
Go ahead,
we need more people like him.
Yes. Go ahead, Newton.
Yeah, I just switched to my mathematics hat as soon as it said lowest common denominator. But when you commented, you said, Jonathan, you said common denominator. That's not true. It was not the common denominator. It was the lowest common denominator.
I stand corrected. You're right.
Yeah, because the person who needs salvation and the person who needs maturing will have a common denominator, but the least of them will be subjects like peace, like comfort,
Loving.
like God will guide you, that God is there with you in trouble. Well, trouble is the lowest common denominator for all believers. So things like that will come up in sermons, but that's not what the church needs at this time. If the government has already said that if my son returns from school tomorrow and tells me he's gonna get his Wagadugu cut off, and then he's gonna become a girl,
Yeah.
and I'm supposed to support him.
Yes.
Otherwise, the government will take the child away from me.
That's California.
That's where the preacher needs to feed me with the word. Give me confidence to stand and fight. But I don't think there are many churches where the members believe that the church is on their side on whatever decision they make. I don't think there are many churches because they don't say anything about that.
What were you saying, Miranda?
Which time? Silence is
Oh,
complicit. That's, I mean,
T-
I agree with him.
Yes.
Silence is complicit. And if you're supposed to, I don't, them not saying anything about all of this tells me more about them than about anything else. Because then you're not helping me give me the strength to be able, like Newton said, to bear through this. Like they're supposed to be helping you, giving you things that will help you get through this. But yeah, the taking the kids away, oh, that's California for sure.
Yeah.
My quick
parents don't agree.
reaction to that is we are in this situation in culture as Christians. Okay, to me, I've been saying this all this time. There's nobody else to blame but us.
But us.
We've been silent. We've been silent in the pews. That's why this shaping of culture has happened. The shaping of the culture was reliant on the world rather than the church shaping the culture. That's what really happened. And it's really on us. And I think that's why, for those of you who are watching, that's one of the reasons we come together and put together this podcast, is to continue to talk about these things. And to us, we are Christians. We stand with the Bible says. We believe that truth is objective. For those of you who are watching, please like, please subscribe, please share this video to your friends, and please comment. And I would like to know what you guys think. Now, here's a sample. Let's go to the little encouraging side of things, okay? Because we got a couple of pastors that I love to listen, and we're going to start with Pastor Alton Williams. And this is the kind of, I know it's hard for people to understand and to absorb this in this day and age, because there is already shaping and changing of the culture. But I'm glad we still have pastors who stand up to the truth and tell their people what is going on outside of their church, and they need to help and share the gospel and share the truth to people. So watch this clip.
Here's what hurt me. Now, I'm finna say it, you ain't gonna like it, but I'm giving you truth. When Obama put the colors on the White House, acknowledging this nation honors LGBTQ, I saw black folk and black preachers compromise. We got to accept it because our black president goes along with it. I don't care what president, what color he is. If you ain't in line with God, I can't stand with you. And that's what's causing y'all. Yeah, I'm preaching up in here. You're getting off with God because you're trying to stand with black.
See?
I love him. I literally watch him every day. Wow. We need more people on fire for God that's going to truly tell people what they need to hear, like him. I literally watch him every day. I wait for him to post stuff.
Go ahead, Newton.
I'm actually surprised that there are not many speaking this way. You see, that's what I'm still thinking. What are preachers afraid of? What he said is not offensive. It is just a fact. It is what many people say in their homes. They just can't say it out. But you're a preacher, you have a big congregation listening to you, you have a duty to them. I don't think this should be rare. I think this should be normal every Sunday. There should be a war between the state and the church if we truly know what we're doing. But at this point, everybody is the government's friend. If it has nothing to do with money, then the church is compromised. The preachers are compromised, and they're afraid for what can come out if they get investigated. That's what I still think, as far as America is concerned. That's what I believe. People are afraid that if the government comes after them, they will be exposed.
And this Pastor Alton, who said when Obama, right? Because here it affects our lives. It affects the morality of the culture of morality that we live in. This ideology, these narratives are being shoved into our throats. That's the problem. There, we have free will. God has given us free will. God has allowed us to do whatever we want. But the problem is, like, again, morality, right? Newton, share with me what you shared with me about when Obama was president, before they would send aid to Africa. What was he doing? Go ahead, Newton.
Oh, you mean when I was in Nigeria?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that was shocking. I was shocked, actually. So I used to teach at an international school. It was a Christian school. And then when Obama was president, the more like the consular general, that's what they call them for Nigeria, the consular general for the US to Nigeria, who is like the ambassador. The US ambassador to Nigeria, the one that stays in the consulate, came visiting us. Okay? And this was a Christian school that it is a must, you must do Bible. Most of the expatriates that came to that school were Muslims from Arab countries, from India. They are forced to take Bible. It was a contract you had to sign. It was a private school. When Obama's people came, guess what they gave all of us?
The Quran?
The Quran.
There you go.
Because he's a Muslim.
Obama gave us the Quran. My boss was livid, but because she was a representative of Americans in America, because she was big, she was an American, she could not fight it out, but we were all upset. We were more upset than she was. She was embarrassed, not upset, because she's the one pulling all these Muslim kids that you must be born again, you must be born again. Then her president sent somebody to them and gave all of us the Quran and books about Islam and all that. That's all they did to us. They said because it's crazy.
It's crazy.
And then I came to America and I saw everybody celebrating Obama. Before I came to America, I already knew that Obama was a zero. He cannot be a hero.
Well,
yeah.
To me, I tried to study bits and pieces of the Quran, okay?
Yeah.
Because here's my point. The Quran just proves that the Bible is true. We can have that on another discussion, okay? It's in Surah something where it says, "All ye people of the book," right? Find it that the gospel is true, and we'll talk. That's another conversation that we can talk about. But let me push for this last video that we have, and another great pastor. Oh, please go ahead. Yes.
So I think that pastors are afraid to go against government because either they have something to hide themselves, or they stifle and muzzle themselves because they want to fit in. I don't think it's a matter of them actually loving their flock enough to love them beyond what they want to hear and give them what they need to hear, like Pastor Alton Williams does. That's what I think.
We need more pastors like him.
We need more like him. Absolutely.
Yes. No compromise. He was just speaking the truth.
Yeah.
And here's one of my favorite pastors. Here's our last video to talk about before we close. Go ahead, Paco. Roll the tape.
We have a moral obligation to represent Christ as ambassadors and to be salt and light in this world, reflecting him well. And so political engagement is one way to be ambassadors and to be salt and light in the world. And by political engagement, I mean advocating for policies that promote righteousness, voting for candidates who most closely represent our biblical values, praying for our elected leaders and holding them accountable, and even running for elected office. If Christians do not stay politically engaged, guess what will fill the vacuum? Every evil, demonic practice.
Yes.
Good government cannot save us, but bad government can destroy us. And so the question I want to challenge us with as we approach this presidential election is this: what can we do to advance the kingdom of God for the glory of God and to stem the tide of evil in our land until Jesus comes?
You can see on this what he said. He's not talking about the personality of the politicians. What he's pointing out are the policies where these politicians stand, because none of the politicians, and I'll be the first one to admit, right? Kamala Harris nor Donald Trump stand to righteousness as a whole.
Completely.
But
as a
you
whole.
see what he said. Which one has the
Closest to
closest? Which candidate go close and at least parallel to the word? None of them. No politician in the history. Again, as Christians, we look at the kings of the Old Testament, the disciples of the New Testament, those who are even the Christian writers. They all had their imperfections. They all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. But I love the challenge. Go ahead, Miranda.
No, I agree with what you said. That's the fact that we're agreeing and more than disagreeing is not surprising. But the fact that people for some reason think that they're voting for a person, they're not. They're fooling themselves.
Yes.
You might like that person, but you're putting all the policies, good, bad, or indifferent, of that person on everyone. So how you could, me as a Christian, I can like you and not agree with you. Like, there's no way that my beliefs will let me align myself with a party that believes that abortion is whatever you want, nor will it allow me to think that two men could marry, nor will it allow me to think that I'm supposed to tell my children or grandchildren about LGBTQ, have drag queens come and have story time with them. None of that stuff aligns with my belief. So I can't align myself with a party, because that's what you're doing. You're not just aligning yourself with bits and pieces. That party has taken God out of their platform. If you don't believe me, go read their platform. God's been removed from their platform. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I cannot, in good conscience, me say with my mouth that I'm a Christian, but my actions align with something that's pure evil. I can't do that. Other people can do that. I can't. But I'm grateful for pastors like him that speak out.
Newton?
I'm just a bit puzzled that the church, I thought everybody in the church will have similar opinions to what Miranda just said and what I just said. Why is it not so? There's something wrong. There's just something wrong, because I am thinking that we should have similar opinions based on God's word on everything. I'm surprised that even people in leadership positions, people that are preaching, have a contrary opinion. Let me give you a good example. I was speaking with a preacher during the riots, the George Floyd riots, and they were looting those stores in Beverly Hills, on Rodeo Drive, or so one of those streets there. And this preacher said that they deserve it because it's some form of reparation. That the people looting the stores But this preacher did not consider that some of those stores may be owned by black people who God blessed, that you prayed for God to bless. They have
It could be anyone, not even a set race. Anyone. That's hard
Just
work
look
for
at that.
anybody to do
And
that.
absolutely. So when I heard that, I just went, okay, there's something wrong in it's either the American church or the black church. Because again, I don't know, but there's something wrong. There's just something wrong. If you go to other countries, you don't see preachers who boldly say that they support all these things, all this evil that preachers come out and defend here. You rarely see it.
What the preachers are doing, again, I watch a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of preachings. Is that what they do is this: they simply read the Bible and make the Bible fit their narrative and fit their lifestyle. It's supposed to be the other way around. We're so good to follow what the word says. I've had this, like for one of my arguments, obviously, is when Paul wrote to the Romans in Romans chapter 1, that he talks about what is sin. He enumerated specifically what sin is. And I have a friend who said, well, it was written to the Romans, not written necessarily to everybody else. Like, see, because if you read, no, I'm serious about this, and I'm sorry, he does profess himself as a Christian, that he said that it was only written to the Romans. Wow, so in the same way where in Leviticus it was only the justification for that, because in Leviticus it was only written to Israel. It's not written to the Gentiles or to the pagans or whatever. And again, I always say one of the things I keep sharing with the Bible, right? The Bible, there's sections that are prescriptive and there are sections that are descriptive. It describes what happens, and there's many things in the Bible, especially in the New Testament, it talks about what we're supposed to do as Christians. Man, I don't want to end this. I want to talk about this all night long, but we're really out of time.
What we shouldn't do. So that's why I'm like, how is all the stuff that it clearly says we shouldn't do? People are doing left and right, front and center, like it means nothing. Like, I don't think that people realize how you vote. They think it means nothing. You're going to have to answer for that. Just saying.
Correct.
We have to answer for everything. So when you get up there, you explain to him why you're backing somebody, not even somebody. Why are you associated with a party that goes against his beliefs? I'm not asking you about what you condone or what you agree with, his beliefs. When you can answer that to God, go for it. Until then, peace. Leave me out of it.
Well, here's the thing. For those of you who has arrived to this point of listening to us, thank you for listening to this podcast. Thank you for liking and subscribing. For those who have not, please like, subscribe, and to share this video with your friends and make comments, any kind of comments. We welcome them as long as it's respectful. We would love to have a respectful exchange of ideas and thoughts with you guys. So please like, share, and subscribe. I can't stop saying that. And again, thank you for your time, Maranda and Newton. And of course, we would like to acknowledge Paco behind the camera, who's been helping us. Thank you for helping us. Thank you.
Thanks, Paco.
Well, you guys have any last words, you guys? Anything that you would like to say to our viewers, please?
I'm praying for our country, and I'm praying for everybody to, I know people say vote your conscience. Your conscience could be a liar, just saying. There are certain beliefs that you have. Make sure that they're your beliefs and not propaganda that's been spewed into your head to make you think that it's right. I believe we all know right and wrong. And stop being so self-centered to think that all of this is about you when it's about generations behind you. Some things you can't undo.
Go ahead, Newton.
Vote for Trump.
Yep. Trump 2024,
That's it.
baby.
That's all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I cannot say it any better than that. You guys have a good day, good night, wherever you are watching this podcast. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.
The Black and Brown Podcast.